Alright, today I'd like to talk to you about the type 6 on the Enneagram. I am a type 6, so this is like a personal reflection and it's a lot, so let's dive in. So to begin, type 6s have to feel safe and that they belong. That's the core drive and motivation behind it. Sixes value a sense of security and belonging, and as a result, kindness, loyalty, and trust are important to people like me, a type 6. So I get what that means, like deep down, but for people who are not a 6, it sometimes can feel like 6s have trust issues. And my response to that is, well, yeah, it's both yes and no. It's not that I have a trust issue per se, but I really want to get to certainty and security, right? And that trust issue that people think about, well, it's not just trusting people and things, but also a trust issue with ourselves. It's the reason why sometimes I whip out my calculator to calculate what is 9 plus 7 when I already know in my head what the answer is. Right? So the problem is that we see the world in terms of danger, and something has happened in our past as we grew into today, right? To have honed and sharpened and focused our attention on the safety, security, and certainty aspects of just about everything. And type 6s, well, there are two ways that a type 6 shows up in the face of uncertainty or lack of security, or what I call perceived danger, right? So we either avoid and withdraw, or we attack that situation head on. Now, before I go into these two types, I'd like to share with you what type 6 really means, or rather the name of the type 6. And it's a point to think about because there are different schools and different lineages or experts in the world of the Enneagram, and they have different names for it. And I find that for type 6 in particular, the Integrative Enneagram School named it pretty well. So, because let me give you 3 examples. The Enneagram Institute, they call the type 6 the loyalist. And it's true. We want to be safe, and we find that being in the presence and company of others, being accepted and belonging in communities make us feel safe. But the loyalist, as a name, is overly positive, right? And flipping over to the other side, the Helen Palmer tradition, she named it the devil's advocate, or the questioner. Well, the questioner is at least somewhat balanced, but the devil's advocate is, for me, leaning too much into the negative space. But for integrative Enneagram, they named it really well. They call it the loyal skeptic. And I find that that's a perfect balance of the positive, the loyal, and the skeptic. Right? So a type 6 like me wants to get the job done well. I want to do what's right for my people because I'm loyal to them. But my loyalty and my desire to get things done right and well and nicely for whatever purposes out there makes me skeptical. It makes me question things. And that's why loyal skeptic is the perfect name, I think. So, as I was saying, we have 2 ways of showing up in the world. Let's first talk about the first way of expressing or showing up. And by the way, it's not that there are some type 6 that is purely avoidant and some type 6 that are more aggressive and attacking the problems head on. We are a mix of both, right? We show up avoidant in some times, and we attack problems head on in other times. I'll share with you my personal experience. So under the avoidance or withdrawal type 6, there's a lot of self-doubt. There's a lot of self-doubt and questions like, am I ready? come to mind. Do I qualify? I'm not good enough, right? So this leads to a lot of research, of preparation, a lot of thinking through things, and that leads to analysis paralysis, right? We freeze, we procrastinate because we keep preparing, and the more we prepare, the more we research and find out about things, the more we feel like we are inadequate. So, I've gone through other forms of coaching, and there are statements of affirmations that feels really good on the soul, but they do not stick. Statements like "I am enough" in a context and environment of a coaching session, it could feel really good, and I could agree with it. However, that sentiment doesn't stay for long because I would default back to my normal operating system of looking at what's the risk, what's the danger, right? So we have a lot of self-doubt, but the self-doubt doesn't always lead to procrastination or freezing up, of analysis paralysis. There are times where we attack it head on, right? Because this different mode of a type 6 feels like waiting or preparing is worse than failing. So some situations might arise that I feel that, okay, I'm going to do it whether I'm ready or not, whether I feel qualified or not, because waiting and not finding out makes it worse for me. I'll forever stay in the loop of doubt, wondering if things would have been better if I've just done it, right? It's the reason why I joined Toastmasters during my university days, because at 17 years old, when I stood in front of my class and teachers to deliver a presentation, I realized that I couldn't even read my script. Why? Because I was trembling so much, and I knew in my university days that if I don't solve this problem, how am I going to survive in the corporate world? I'd rather deal with it right now. Go through the pain of the fear head on and hopefully overcome that stage fright and become an eloquent speaker than to avoid it, because avoidance in this case would just mean that the problem would never go away, right? So this is how I attacked the problem head on. And it's also why after graduating from university, after going through sociology and psychology, I decided to go into corporate sales, because I realized in my university days, selling and pitching and talking to people is a hugely terrifying thing for me. And I know that sales and convincing people and talking to people, having a good conversation is what makes the world go round. You gotta communicate and convince people to get what you want. That's true in job interviews, that's true in a sales job, that's true in a relationship. So I thought that since I am so afraid of selling, I better get into a sales job. And my first 4.5 years of my career, my life after schooling days, it was a torture because I was literally putting myself in the most uncomfortable situation. It was actually why it felt so good when I stumbled upon StrengthsFinders, did the assessment and got debriefed. My StrengthsFinder coach told me that why only tackle the weakness when you could lean into your strengths and get so much more out of your strengths. And it's true, like we should reduce the amount of weaknesses, right? But when we leverage our strengths, we can get so much further ahead. And that was nice, but it still felt like something was off, because my doubt is my permanent operating system, right? And why is type 6, why am I a representative of type 6? Why am I, so concerned? Well, the problem is not the doubt of other people, of situations or status of the world, that kind of thing, but it is a loss of trust in inner knowing, in myself, right? So there's always a constant scanning of the perceived dangers in the world. And so when my friends in my Enneagram course asked me this, I had a perfect answer for it, and it surprised me as well. I'm going to share it with you. They asked me, so my spouse is a 6. I have colleagues who are type 6 as well. How do we be with type 6s or work with type 6s in a way that assures them that you can trust us and things are going to be all right, you are safe with us, and I'm surprised to find out that actually, and I never thought of it this way before, but I'm surprised to come to the conclusion that the people I trust to work with are those who have thought of the potential outcomes and implications. It's like how Batman always have a contingency plan, right? He's thought through things. But I don't expect people in my life to have really thought through everything. I don't think it's possible and feasible. And even if we're thought through, even if we have plans, well, plans always go off track. So, but what assures me is to know that I'm with people or working with people who have thought ahead about what might happen. I don't expect perfect plans. I don't expect a perfect solution, but knowing that you are a person who has looked at potential outcomes, that puts me at ease. All right. So that's something you could think about. Do you know anyone who is very doubtful, who is very defensive, or doesn't trust people? Maybe they are type 6, right? And if you show them that you're gonna be there with them, you're gonna be in the trenches and fight the battles with them, and you have some plans or ideas of what you guys could do, that would really calm a 6 down. And for my fellow type 6 Enneagram people out there, how could we be more healthy and integrated? One of the things is really to go with the flow, to trust in the absence of evidence or plans or preparation, because we can't prepare for everything. Have faith, right? Faith is believe and trust in the absence of evidence. But I know that it's super hard because, and I would love to, right, to be able to have that kind of peace and belief and relief, but it's really difficult. So, and one thing has really popped up years ago before I learned about the Enneagram that has continued to be a great help for me. And if this phrase or thought is useful for you, I'll be gratified. In one of my darkest days, this thought walked into my mind out of the blue. And it's that everything's going to be all right. And that I've never failed at anything. I've never failed to get through anything that life has thrown at me. Not to say that I've not failed, but I'm still around. I have not failed so drastically that I've gotten into huge trouble or lost my life. I know that sounds a little bit silly, but hey, I've gotten through everything, every single challenge that has been thrown my way. So everything's gonna be all right. And fundamentally, remind yourself, if you're a doubtful type 6, that everything's gonna be all right, and trust in yourself to make it through. So this is my little reflection on what a type 6 could be. And I'll see you in the next video where I explore more of the deeper stuff to type 6, as well as the other types, the other core types on the Enneagram.